Hey folks, JD here, and today I want to talk a little bit about resin printing and PLA printing. So now I've got a resin printer, am I going to get rid of my PLA printer and just be a resin manufacturing line? No, I'm not. Quite simple. Simply put, people have got maybe a bit of a bad impression of PLA. So I'm going to talk you through PLA, I'm going to talk you through resin, I'm going to talk you through my thoughts and some of my prints that you can see in front of me here. I'm going to add that one because that's a lovely print as well. And essentially I'm going to take you through why I'm still going to be using both and why I'm still very heavily into both of them. Well, there's my PLA printer, my Ender 3 over in the corner there, printing an R2D2 with support Google Now holder. You may be able to see in the background there's a multicolored holder. That is one I printed about 4 months ago. This is going to be one purely in grey that I'm going to do up as a steampunk R2D2 with textures and shading. So that's why it's only printed in grey and not in multicolour like the one directly behind. So that takes time. This is going to be a one day and 22-hour print as the PLA layers slowly on top of each other until you get this particular design. It's a very time-consuming process. It doesn't smell. It's again still recommended to have the window open because it is cornstarch inside that great big 1 kilogram spool there. That is what the PLA is made out of. It's biodegradable, so anything that any of your failed prints like me, I can put in the compost bin and it will degrade down, and it doesn't have an adverse effect on your earth or degraded stuff which is already in there. It is just time consuming. The annoying factor about this, not just about this PLA printer but about other PLA printers as well, is if a print is going to fail, I got roughly about 80-85% success rate with this. If a print is going to fail, Sod's Law says it's going to fail at like 96%, and I'm going to wake up one day and I'm going to find that my printer is just a load of candy floss sitting on top of an almost perfect print. So that's the annoying factor there. The calibration factor, you do need to do a little bit more with this type of printer. So after about every 6 prints, I level the bed, I ensure everything's okay. I change the nozzle after 7 prints. So I'm running a 0.04 millimeter nozzle on that, which is my preferred nozzle to run. That get with a 40% infill factor when I'm doing big models like this, to ensure that the models are nice and sturdy. It does use a bit more PLA, but it doesn't really bother me, to be perfectly honest with you. At £15 a spool of 1 kilogram, I'm more than happy, and have got a load down here of spools that I can just keep on using. This now will use about 233 grams of PLA to complete. That's with an infill layer of 40%. At 0.04 nozzle size, as well as a layer size is super fine quality I use as well. I don't like any sort of prints which aren't super fine. I have done some non-super fine, which is here, which again I shrunk down a large model and I used some different PLA I've never used before with different effects. The front unstuck and it just caused me a little bit of trouble, but still it came out okay, came out pretty well. It's just nice just to showcase that particular PLA that I had, and I'm quite satisfied with that. It's not great, but there we are. And also I've done other prints as well. You can see my Venom, which I'm going to undercoat, as well as my Terminator heads. I've got a load of these that I'm doing, and I've got a load of them for a very specific reason. I'll go into that when I start to... Will you just stay? Good. I'll go into all of that, why I've got so many of these, in a little while, and you can see the progression that I've made with them. So that's PLA. I'm happy with it. I'm going to stick with it. It's great for big models because it's got a big bed and it's got a 30cm height. So for large models, I've done a colour change in Hulkbuster. So a great big 29cm Hulkbuster, and the PLA changes colour with heat. So he goes from a white to a blue, and it just looks fantastic. That took about 4 days to print. I'm super happy with it. I should actually show you that, but that's downstairs, so I'll show you that another time. So coming on to resin. Resin in comparison takes a lot quicker. So to print something like this took about 4.5 hours. Full resin, but then you've got your pros and cons. Like, you've got to have ventilation open, it smells, the resin is toxic, anything can go wrong with this particular printer. Like, you've got a fine film where the resin sits in, and then you've got glass underneath that. If you've got any small bobbles of resin that you don't know about, that could, when the plate comes down, that could crack the glass, rendering the printer useless. There's lots of different little things like that you could have with it, but obviously it's just a learning curve to get used to what to look for after every print and how to scrape the film without damaging the film and everything else. It is a learning curve. It was a real uphill learning curve for me coming off the PLA, but still after a week of having it now, I'm super happy with it, and I'm coming to terms with it very, very easily. Now, you can also get, once you've dialed in your settings with PLA, you can get some beautiful prints like this. Look at that. Incredible. Now the Benchy is a torture test. That's what this particular print thing is called. It's called a Benchy. And pretty much when you first get your PLA printer, you do a little Benchy like that just to see if your printer is dialed in correctly, because if it comes out perfect like that, then you know it's calibrated. So what I did was I tortured it even more by I increased the size of it quite a way, and just let my printer scream around then for about 8 hours while it did that. And then the finished result I'm really happy with. Just got to file it down, just get rid of a couple of little bits of dusting everywhere else, and then once I'm done that, then it should be good to undercoat and then start to print. So that's going to be good. Again, likewise with the larger models, the PLA printing I think is superb, really good. Now this one I damaged and accidentally when I took it off the bed, but still I'm still going to use it. This was the first head I have ever printed. This line in between here, you can see that was where I ended one PLA roll and put another one on. So I'm pretty happy at how quick I managed to do that, even though it has shifted the model slightly. I'm still going to use it. Once I've painted it, you won't be able to see those little things, so I'm very happy. One thing the resin does have over PLA is just down to scale. Look at that. This is Harry Potter's Hogwarts grounds, and it's just miniaturized. I miniaturized it as small as I could using the full width of the bed that I have at my disposal, and that's what you get. It's curling a little bit on the corners, but the overall detail is what I'm looking at. The little trees down here, the little river, the benches, the little, the bridges, the little church down there, everything about it is just beautiful. Really, really beautiful. But as well as having a moderate success rate with PLA, 80 to 85%, you also have a failure rate with resin as well. That's a Warhammer 40,000 model Terminator, meant to have a heavy flamer in this arm and meant to have an arm there. But unfortunately, he has not. And this one failed because I added the incorrect support. So again, it's a bit of a learning curve. Best way to support any sort of model on resin is from a 45-degree angle. Wish I'd known that before this. It's my fault for not looking, but at the same time I like to learn by trial and error for myself. I don't necessarily like to watch others and learn from that. I'm very much a trial and error sort of person. So as you can see, both of them have their pluses, both of them have their cons. No smell with this, long time to create a print, but prints can be very large. Smaller size prints because the bed is smaller. This does smell a hell of a lot. Resin is toxic. The cleanup process is so goddamn annoying. But then as soon as you see the output of the miniatures, then I think to myself, wow, it's worth it. It's all worth it because of the miniatures are just beautiful. So in my estimation, I wouldn't go for one over another. It's exactly down to you. If, like me, you collect Warhammer 40,000, you paint them, you make them up, and then you have them on display, then resin would most definitely be for you to get those fine details and the intricate level of detail on those models. If, again, like me, you like big models of films which have really captured you, like Alien, Terminator, Robocop from over the years, then a PLA printer is great for doing larger scale models that you won't necessarily be able to do on the resin printer. Yes, the resin printer is long, but the bed is as wide as that, and that's it. It doesn't get any wider. So if you want to do something like this, you won't be able to do it at that scale on this particular printer. That being said, it's so much cheaper to run the resin printer versus PLA, but still, in my household, I have use for both. And I'm going to keep on using both. I think both have their pluses, both have their cons, and I still think that both of them are fantastic. I hope that's helped you in your quest for resin or PLA printers. If it has, let me know in the comments. If you've got some comments as well on your printer that you've been doing for a while, let me know as well. I went for the Ender 3 quite simply because at the beginning, I thought it was one of the better ones at one of the better price. It came as a good all-rounder. It was open source, and I'm a massive supporter of the Open Source Foundation. It is an easier printer to set up, even though it took me 3 hours because I'm a little bit dense when it comes to stuff like that. The overall working of it is perfect. The only thing you've got to change is the nozzle. you know, the calibration process gets annoying, but once you've leveled it twice or three times, it just becomes something that you have to do. And that's why I went for the Ender 3. I went for this Elegoo Mars because my father-in-law bought it, because he's doing an N-gauge model railway set, and he is doing the full model, not just the trains. He is doing everything. He is sculpting the mountains, bridges, everything after the Devon coastline. I think it's the Exmouth line. I think the Devon. This is where he shouted at the TV, "Go, no, you've got it wrong!" But I think it's the Devon coastline down there, and he's sculpting everything out of clay, out of model, out of foam, out of wood. He's doing the whole thing, and it looks spectacular. And he wanted this to be able to get those very fine details that I couldn't get with the Ender 3. We tried, but the Ender 3 only goes down to 0.01, and even then it's a little bit sketchy. I couldn't really dial the settings in anymore without really overexposing the temperature of the PLA and then damaging the overall output. Whereas with the Elegoo Mars resin, he's able to attain those very fine details and get exactly what he needs. So that's where I learned of this printer. So it's because of him I bought this, and overall, thank you, Alan, I'm very, very happy with this. But it is not going to replace my PLA printer at all. If anything, what I would do is I would get another one of this over the Ender, just quite simply because of space. That's it. The Ender takes up quite a lot of my desk, and I would like to have another PLA printer. Maybe I will at some point, but at the same time, I think for now I'm going to stick with having the one of each, because they complement themselves really quite nicely. Alright my friends, I'm going to stop there. Thanks ever so much for watching and listening. I've been JD, you've been fantastic as always. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and ring that bell too. Hello and welcome to all the new subscribers. I hope you're enjoying the channel. So until next time my friends, happy printing.